I remember the day like yesterday. It was a crisp autumn morning with a lot of leaves in the air. It was November, and I was just 9 years old. I was happy. It was Saturday. My mom had to run some errands, and my dad was at work on a Saturday. I had to take care of my 1 year old twin sisters, so did my little sister. I was the only boy child, and I grew out of Blue's Clues when I was 4 because for some reason I thought it was too girly. It was only 2001, so I wasn't surprised at my 5 year old, 15-year-old sister suggesting a Blue's Clues VHS. Oh, but there was something funny about it. Steve was saying the title of it in depressed emotions. The top of the speech bubble was ripped off, showing a red VHS. The back and other sides were all completely white. Mommy got this for us to watch, my older sister said. Are you sure about this, Julie? I said. Don't worry, I got all of our backs if there is something wrong, Johnny, my older sister Julie replied. Julie popped the VHS into the player where the coming soon the video cassette was supposed to be. It was just a timer for when the feature presentation was coming on. It kept shooting to static most of the time. Instead of the Paramount feature presentation I expected like on all my Rugrats VHSs, instead it was just a 1995 Paramount Mountain sitting there motionless. Julia and I talked with each other thinking the VHS was just a special. After 20 seconds of waiting, a weird Nick Jr. logo came on. The Nick was just walking in a straight motion with the Jr. following along. This was silent and it went on for 10 seconds. My little sisters were getting tired and we stopped the VHS and put the twins, their names are Daniel and Hannah, in their cribs. Julia and I wanted to see why this VHS was so weird. After we got back from the family room, the VCR said play in the top corner. We didn't even touch play. Anyways, we kept watching. The Nick Jr. logo was still going for 20 seconds. I told Julia to eject the tape. She went to the VCR, pressing the stop eject button repeatedly. She gave up and said it's useless. I told her to keep watching, so we watched it together. The Blue's Clues intro started. Instead of the joyful guitar music, there was depressing piano music. Steve said, "Hi out there. It's me, Steve. Hey, have you seen Blue, my puppy?" In a voice that sounded nothing like Steve. A jolt of static jolted across the screen. Blue was in cheesy CGI instead of paper animation. When the Blue's Clues door opened, we see a man that looks nothing like Steve, so he was wearing the same clothes as Steve. Then the TV bursted with static, and then the episode came back on. Steve was back to normal. Steve said, "Hi, come on in. Today we won't play Blue's Clues." The background kid said in a confused voice, "Why not?" The screen shot a tiny percent, revealing a grotesque corpse of Blue. Blue was on her back with her intestines tied around her. Blue's eyes were popped out of her sockets, revealing yet green CGI eyes. I almost threw up, but I held in my puke. Julia was not even sticking by this. That's because she has a thick stomach. It cut back to Steve. Steve was smiling very big at a rate where CGI wasn't that realistic in 2001. Steve said, "You kids will learn about death." The TV turned to a static for a boring 2 minutes. Julia and I talked. This was actually made by Paramount. Julia called 911 and told me the line was cut. We had to watch the whole thing then. After the static ended, Steve said he would be playing his very special game. The background kids cheered. He went to side table drawer. Side table said, "Blue's Clues, I'm so X." A loud gunshot rang. The screen changed back to black and Steve laughed in a soft voice. After the screen faded black, we see Mr. Salt with red bloody eyes and Mrs. Pepper with white eyes and sharp teeth so realistic it feels like you can touch them. Steve said if they wanted any juice. The couple said sure thing. Static once again shot across the screen. I can make out 666 in the static. Julia asked if I saw 666. Obviously, I said yes, so we snuggled up with each other waiting for the worst to come. The episode came back on with Steve saying, "Here you go, 2 servings of yummy juice." Mr. Saul and Mrs. Pepper were in cheesy CGI this time. They drank Steve's juice and loved it. "Yummy, what's in this?" Mr. Saul asked. "Cyanide and poison, of course," Steve replied. "What?" Mrs. Pepper screeched. Suddenly, the two were coughing off salt and peppers out of their bottles instantly instead of blood. Julia and I watched in horror as the 2 live inanimate objects suffered to meet their fate. Then after the shakers were dead, Steve into a picture frame and put both the felt frames into a wooden boat where there was a lagoon of lava. But as the felt frames got into the boat, that was on the lava. The bone burned and the footprints burned down to death. And then Steve was happy, then skidded back. Steve was satisfied with his accomplishment. He kept going. Shovel and Pail were in the backyard, and they looked sad, and all they were doing was staring at a live-action clock that resembled Tickety-Tock. Shovel said in a 5-year-old boy's voice, "Poor Tickety-Tock." Pail said in the 5-year-old's girl voice, "I miss Periwinkle." Periwinkle? He was on the show for only 1 year back then. Steve said in an old man's voice, "And you're next." "No," the Shovel and Pail said. Steve closed his eyes for 3 seconds and opened them, revealing bloodshot eyes. Shovel and Pail screamed and ran away from the so-called Steve. Steve said, sang Ring Around Rosie in the creepy little girl's voice. He found Pail and grabbed her by the handle. Pail was blood-curdling, screaming as blood shot over the place. Shovel cried to his sister's death and sprinted away. Shovel started running to the front yard where he found Mailbox. Shovel told Mailbox to run, but Mailbox said he couldn't. He was stuck to the ground. The voice of Mailbox sounded like Steve for some reason. Shovel whispered to himself, "I'm coming with you, Pail." Steve came back and said, "Hello, you little yellow Shovel. Want to play?" Shovel answered, "Okay." Steve shoved Shovel into Mailbox's mouth. Mailbox closed around Shovel's neck, with Steve holding Mailbox's mouth shut. When the two died, Steve sprinted into the house with Static jolting around for 1 minute. After the static was all gone, we saw Steve and Slippery, so Slippery was blindfolded. "Are you ready for your present, Slippery?" Steve asked, all fake happy. Slippery said in Periwinkle's voice, "I'm always ready." Steve counted 1, 2, 3. A knife sliced Slippery's soap in half. Steve was happy. "Satan is my king. I must kill myself to make him happy," Steve said. Suddenly, the screen turned black, and a rope sound came out of the blue. Then it cut to Steve hanging from a noose, and it later faded to black. The Nickelodeon logo came on and was shaped as a knife, and on the handle there was a small black label with the number 666 on it. On the text, and also on it was the text saying, "Julia told me it was Morse code for your turn." There were no credits. Then the screen faded, blasted with static, and the power went out. I will never forget that day. I remember it was November 17th, 2001. That was the day our family changed. I got paranoia and had to see a therapist. Nobody except my family believes what I saw. Julia has a condition where she doesn't sleep a lot, and her husband is always trying to calm her down to make her sleep. Danielle and Hannah are not very crude and like Gore. They're mean to certain people. My mom is always depressed and hates her job. She wants to be at home and cry all day. My dad got into a car crash on his way to work. He's now in a wheelchair and can't walk. I wish this never happened. The VHS got smashed to bits by Julia. That Blue's Clues VHS is why my family is like this. At least it's gone now. I call that VHS Blue's Clues, No Clues. It's my nightmare. At least I'm alive. For now.